Okay, I know what I did wrong. If you hang out for just a second, I got to put up something different. In here.
Sure.
Okay. The first graph page you see. Tell me if I'm right. It should show only the red curve and the blue curve and a series of vertical colored lines.
Correct.
Okay. On the case of the dog, you'll see two of these on one graph instead of just one.
Okay.
This is the forefoot and hind foot. So you should see a total, for the human, you should see a total of 5 colored lines, and for the dog, 10. If you see all 10 lines, that's all you need to know at this point, because that tells you the acquirer is able to compute everything it needs for that channel.
Okay.
So it's something you can do pretty quickly. Just stop, look at this, and then go on. The two blue lines mark the beginning and end of the strike, and the purple line in the middle marks where it goes from braking to propelling.
Okay.
And the two brown lines are the peak propelling force and peak braking force, peak propelling force.
Okay, and
the fact that the 5 lines are there means it's able to find all those things.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I have the 5 lines.
Yeah.
What was the middle line?
That's the change from braking to propulsion. Pink. Okay.
Okay, and then back to the acquisition phase. You'll see a graph showing all the force curves first, and then the second screen will look just like this, and then the third screen will be back to a list of showing the trial and the trial description, and that's where you would logically enter the minus LL1 RR2.
Okay.
Because you've already done the trial, you've seen the dog barking, and you know what it is, and that would be the right time to do it. You can also do it later, but you might as well do it right then.
Okay, so when we acquire data, these graphs will automatically come up. We check them.
Graphs come up automatically.
Right, we check them to make sure we have 5 vertical lines per foot strike.
Yep.
And then at that time, I've seen these. It almost looks like there's 2 force plates, so you could pretty much determine which is left and which is right at that time.
Yes.
But also with a visual check of just having seen the pass occur.
Yes.
Okay.
And the other purpose of that first graph that comes up is that as you do more and more trials, it will show you the current trial and then the previous one in a little dimmer color,
Okay.
and then the one before that in gray. And what you're looking for here is just consistency.
Okay.
Roughly speaking, the curves should lay over each other pretty well, and if one of them is just way off, you might want to say, let's not keep that trial.
Okay.
And then the second screen is where it shows only the current trial, only those 2 channels, and those colored lines, just helping you make sure that's all right.
Okay.
And then it goes from there to another screen, which allows you to enter information into the trial description.
Okay.
And when you've done all of that, you have a chance to save the trial or discard it. That's the only time the program ever actually throws away data.
All right. I remember you telling me that it kept everything.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think we're good there.
Okay. And before we go on, I wanted to make sure, do you know, regarding plate numbers, which one is physically number 1, which one is number 2?
I think so.
Okay. I can check my notes. I was looking here, and I've got to go back to a different place to find them, but I can check them if you want me to.
Yeah. I'm almost certain.
Okay.
Because this morning when I recorded myself going over the force plates, and I knew which. I kind of went down on my right harder, and the little force plate boxes came up on the screen, and I could clearly see where I'd put my right foot and then left foot, and the right was on the force plate on the left as I'm looking at the runway, and that was labeled number 1.
All right. Yeah, and the reason I ask that is that the physical plate numbers are what you enter in. to that notation for 1 and 2.
Right.
And the reason I tell you that is that if you do a series of trials, it said they overlay the graphs for consistency.
Yep.
If you happen to walk in both directions, some people alternate directions. First you go one way, then you go the other way, and alternate back and forth. Some dogs don't want to walk one way, so they walk the other. It just depends on how you do this. If you have a mix of trials in the different directions, the acquire is going to actually flip those around only for graphs. Doesn't change the data at all. Only for the purpose of graphs, so that when you overlay them, they look like they're all going the same way. Otherwise, you can't get any comparison.
Right. Right.
And when it does that, it's going to appear that it's changed the plate numbers on you. Okay, this is strictly an appearance. But to avoid all the confusion when you're entering that number or that information into the trial description, always use physical plate numbers, because those never change.
Right, I see. So, for example, if, let's say for the sake of argument, an animal hits the first force plate from both directions with the right, then the first notation might be RR1/LL2, and then the next pass would be RR2/LL1. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
But when you look at the two graphs overlaid, it's going to appear that the animal always went the same direction. And so that can get a little confusing. It's very helpful for doing the comparisons. But when you enter that notation, you don't want to be deceived by that. Just always use the physical plate number.
Okay.
What if you have a small dog and both legs strike the same plate?
So that doesn't work. If dogs are too small, we can't use the force plates.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a size limit on force plates.
Okay, because those are pretty big for a
And that would be,
or something.
yeah, no, and that would be one thing that we need to train ourselves to look at, is when we're watching the dog, we need to have it hit kind of ideally in the center of one and the center of the other.
Okay.
And if they hit the edge of the first one and the edge of the first one, then we just have to discard that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be a learning curve. Okay.
Yeah. Let's look at a couple of other things. Can you go back to the page that showed the list of trials again, or that one highlighted?
Yes, got that.
Okay. There is a column just before trial description. It's called DIR direction.
Yeah.
And it's either FWD or REV.
Yes, at the moment is REV.
Yeah. This is the program's assessment of which direction it went. And so you'll see a mix of those if you do different directions. If you always go the same way, it should always be the same.
Okay.
And that's just, it does that based on Y forces. In one case, the force starts out going positive, and the other direction it goes negative. So
Okay.
whichever way it sees that starting out, that determines the direction.
Okay.
So if it says REV, does that mean you really stepped on plate 2 first? Because it reversed it.
And
No, no.
REV just means the dog walked in the opposite direction. But they would strike force plate 2 first.
Right.
So we'll find out with the practice.
Okay.
And the one other thing I wanted you to look at, because you mentioned striking on the edge, if you click on process trials one more time and bring up the graphs for that one trial.
View graphs, yep.
Yes, and select all the channels this time, and select both force plates.
Okay. So including X versus Y at the bottom?
Yes.
And both force plates, okay. I've done that.
Okay, and I've got to break this other thing up. Oops.
So it's one,
I'm
two,
hesitating here because I've got to pull up something.
and I went in this direction.
Bear with me, I've got to pull up.
Unless it's flipped them and I actually went in that direction.
Because he said the graphs would flip.
The graphs were, yeah, I'm not sure about them. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, what I wanted you to see is that The X versus Y actually gives you a bird's eye view of the force plates.
Right.
And there's some green lines on that that show where the, in the case of the dog, 2 strikes. In the case of the person, there should only be 1. There should be a little white plus.
Yep.
Somewhere. Yeah, and in the case of the dog, you'd see that plus a second green line with a little double plus. And the double plus would be the hind strike.
Okay, right.
And what this is useful, this is the first graph that comes up when you do acquisitions. And one of the things you can look for is how close to the edge was that strike. Is it close enough that you're worried about it? It's another indication. Maybe you shouldn't save this trial.
Okay.
If it's anywhere on the force plate, it's all right.
Okay. And just tell me what the X and then the green line means. Is that first hit to lift off, or
what it's plotting is the exact point on the force plate that was pressed on as that strike progresses. Now, in the case of a human, you've got a human person there, right?
correct?
Human subject. It's a pretty long line, and that's why if you imagine striking on your heel and kind of rolling across to the toe, so it's showing you all the points that were struck as it went from one to the other.
Right.
In the case of the dog, it's more just a little clump of points all almost together.
Okay. So this is good. So I'm looking at my screen here, and the boxes on the left is box 1, on the right is box 2.
Yeah.
But I have the little X's are to the right side of each box, within the box, but to the right side, and the green line trails off to the left. And
okay.
I know what direction I walked in, so that would suggest then that we have force plate 2 on the left as I look at it, and 1 on the right.
Okay.
Would that make sense?
It could, but here's where things get confusing though. Down below where it names the trial, is there an asterisk there?
Yes. It says force plate number asterisk swapped.
Yep, they're swapped. So those numbers up there are actually backwards.
Good. Good.
It's only a display problem.
Okay.
So the left one is 2.
Yeah, and it's confusing now, but if you had two graphs of 2 different trials overlaid and one was forward, one was reversed, then you'd see where it's useful because they look like they're going the same way.
Okay. Yeah, I am, to be honest with you, I'm a little bit lost here about how I know which force plate is which.
Let me check my notes and send you an email.
Okay.
And I'll try to clear that up because that is important.
Maybe when we walk the dog on it.
I guess we could tap one and see what happens.
Well, here's one way you could actually prove it. If you created a project with just force plate number 1, for example, so the program will ignore anything that happens on force plate 2.
Okay.
And then go and step on one plate, see if it triggers, see if it requires something. And then if it doesn't, try the other one. And that will tell you for sure which one is number 1.
All right, let's do that. So new project, and we're going to call this force plate determination. Okay. And then in here, the important thing to put in would be force plates in use. Is that right?
Yes.
And just 1, and then all dashes.
Yes.
Okay.
And up above, you will need to fill in K9 for subject species.
Okay.
And then don't need to put anything in any of those next sections except where there's a name. You will need one name.
Okay. All right, I've got that set up.
Okay. And go ahead and set it up to acquire, and then just go out and step on just one of the force plates.
So what I've done there is, hang on a minute, Andrea, I've selected force plate determination, I've hit acquire process, I've then highlighted the name under that, and I hit OK. And then I hit acquire under a little window that says acquire slash dash process. I hit acquire.
Yes.
Okay, press the other one.
You just
Yep.
want to do one, don't you?
Yeah, but this should. Oh, hang on.
Oh, wait,
Start
start
acquisition.
again.
Sorry. Body weight must be entered. Press the little thing.
200.
All right. Okay. Ready?
Do it again?
Yes. Okay. Try another one.
No, we don't want to do the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause it says it has
it's
the
still
zero
saying
values.
it's waiting.
Oh.
I thought
There you
you
go.
only wanted to step on the
Okay.
That's one.
Great. So that's one. All right. We figured it out.
Okay, just for my information, which one to switch? If you're sitting in the computer position watching both force plates?
Which one's
Then number 1 is on the left.
Okay. All right, that's what I thought it should be. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, that sounds right.
Okay. All right. Right, so I've now exited out of all of this. And I've gone back into our test project,
Okay,
and I've selected a dog. Are we ready to try collecting data on a dog, or do we some other things to go over?
I've covered all the things I wanted unless you had other questions.
I think that's good. Does that make sense to you guys? Start a project, enter the parameters. Yep, we're good?
Yeah, I think that would be your next step. You can call again or send emails if you have questions. At some point, if you've gotten some trials that look pretty good, I would like to see some of those.
Okay.